Hi, this is Steve. Welcome to The Walk. So in my last episode, now I'm making it so I have to put them in a certain order, am I not? I diverged from what's wrong with my life and why is my life that way to why I like technology that is obvious and mechanical and electrical rather than, still and quiet and everything going on behind the scenes, as it were, in bits and bytes. And as I was covering that and thinking about why I'm even doing this whole thing, and I think I'm very interested in the intersection between technology and culture, and how that affects my personal life, how that affects everybody's personal life, how that affects society. Having a conversation with another friend about how things come about, technologically speaking, and how that affects culture. And I said, it seems, after doing some research, I guess I should mention that I'm writing a book, or attempting to. It's not gotten very far, but the basic idea is called From the Light Bulb to the iPhone, or some such title similar. And that will be kind of a history of technology is what it's turning into, of the 20th century mostly, and the 19th to a great degree. And I've done a lot of research in that area now, looking at timelines of what different groups of people consider important discoveries and how they affected society, how they affected culture, how they affected, means of communication in a large part. It seemed like what happens over and over again through history, maybe more the first part of this in the early history, and more the later parts I will cover later in history, but people observe things in nature. They observe phenomena that happen, lightning or magnetism in naturally magnetic materials. They tried to duplicate what they observed in nature. The next thing that usually happened was the concept, once they could understand it well enough to at least duplicate it or make it happen on a regular basis, the next step usually was commercialization, believe it or not. The next step of any discovery seemed to be, gee, we've got this, it's a neat thing, we can figure out how to do it. What can we do with that will be beneficial probably to our pocketbook, honestly, is what a lot of people thought, as much as how will it help society out. And so they would take this principle of electricity or magnetism or what have you and design mechanical devices using them to duplicate the phenomena that they were trying to exploit. Then later, it seems like all the math guys came along and observed it, tried to codify it, measure it, and then kind of come up with the reason why it was happening. And so the formulas and the math that allowed for a lot of the future development in any technology were derived after the original concept was made and or discovered, worked with, made into something, exploited for profit or for just the good of humanity. And then it became codified, and this behaves this way, and it's predictable, and if you do so much of this, you get that, and noted the relationships formulated mathematical formulas for those relationships, and that usually begat further research and expansion on any idea, which is kind of roughly how we got here. So if it wouldn't have been, for instance, for Edison discovering that his carbon filament was blackening the inside of his newly perfected electric light bulb, incandescent bulb, that the carbon filament formula that they'd settled on was blackening the inside of the glass, and they couldn't figure out why it was going there. That led to putting an extra electrode in the light bulb just to see if it would if they could discern anything. They found out that the blackening, the electrode caused a non-blackening of the glass in the shadow of the electrode. This led to a postulation that led to basically the discovery of electronics. It led to the discovery of the diode, the electron, the fact that electrons flowed in a certain direction, which, to give away the entire plot of my book, essentially led us to the vacuum tube, which led us to semiconductors, which are also a parallel phenomena that was discovered about what certain materials would allow electricity to go one way but not the other way, creating, in both cases, they were creating what was called a diode to rectify electrical current. Anyway, that eventually led to the semiconductor industry, which led to this phone that I'm making the video on now. I mean, in a fairly indirect path, but that's kind of what happened. And it's a fascinating journey, actually. I hope I do get it all written down and codified, and sort the interesting, fun parts from the dull, boring parts, and parse which is which for whom, and get it all down on paper at some point so I can release it. Because it's a pretty interesting technological romp through history to get from static electricity through Edison and the light bulb, through computer science and mathematical science, to the modern semiconductor industry with, whole computer systems on chips with billions of transistors inside this thing I'm holding in my hand, transistor junctions, essentially doing, in a sense, what the extra thing did inside Edison's light bulb. It allowed electrons to flow through a space or an area or a vacuum or across a material and control that. Anyway, just a little extra added kind of thing about where I would hope to go with some future episodes, and maybe with something in printed form sooner or later.